You ready?
Hi friends!
Welcome to another video. Thank you for joining us. This is a little follow-up from my last one where I told you about what it was like to work at the Tomorrowland Speedway. So now I thought I would give you some inside stories about things that genuinely happened at the Tomorrowland Speedway.
I'm very excited. You have maybe told me one or two of these stories, but I don't remember any of them, so I'm very excited to hear all of them.
People make fun of me because I talk about it a lot, but a lot happened. What can I tell you? Let's get straight to it. So, number one, it was hot there, as I explained. We had at least three, what are they called when you call the ambulance? Alpha calls. We had at least 3 alpha calls for cast members collapsing. And the reason that's really scary is because of the reason I explained before. It's quite a dangerous attraction because the cars are really strong. They're strong enough to carry 2 fully grown adults around the track. I was going to say Americans, but that's just rude. Around the track. So they are strong enough to cause damage, and they have done in the past. Thankfully it never happened whilst I was there, but cast members would collapse from heat exhaustion, and alphas, otherwise known as ambulances, would come and take the cast members away. So you have to be very careful. Stay hydrated if you work on the speedway.
Yeah.
And going on to that, I'll give you number 2 was some horror stories from the cast members before I worked there about the damage those cars can cause.
Okay.
So
to people or to things?
To people. So the speedway cars have a big metal bumper on the front of them, and that's so when they hit another car, they can bounce straight off. Well, if that metal bumper goes into a cast member, it can break legs. And there was stories of it causing such a big gouge in someone's leg that you could see the bone. So be careful. The reason we ask you to stand behind that yellow line is because it can cause that much damage.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Number 3. So I told you before about the cars travelling at 7 miles per hour and having a speed limiter on them so they don't go too fast. Well, it's a speed limiter. It's a mechanical component of the engine, and it can go wrong, and it would go wrong. So cars occasionally would go much faster than intended, and when that happens they can quite easily derail and go off the track. It didn't happen whilst I was there, thankfully, but it is possible.
Derail the guest in them.
Possible. Which takes me on to the next point, which is something that was called ghost car, which occasionally happens, which is when the car accelerator gets stuck down when there's no one in the car, and it runs around the track. And the way to deal with that is to let it run until it runs out of petrol, or let it hit into an empty car. So it can genuinely happen. So ghost car was something we had to look out for.
Did you ever see a car?
I didn't see a ghost car, unfortunately.
Could you imagine just
yep.
Just going.
Yeah,
that's not
still going, and because it bounces in the rail, it can just keep on going. So it is possible. Thankfully, it never happened whilst I was there. Number 4. So I told you before that I would take off cars if they were damaged. Occasionally, guests would come along and say the steering wheel's broken, and I would flip the wheel and I'd see that it was just spinning freely and the wheels weren't turning. Once a car pulled up and I told the guests to jump in, and they said, we're not getting in that car, it's broken. And I was like, well, what do you mean? They're like, it's missing a wheel. And I was like, no, it really is. I was like, you're gonna make me check that, really? So I stepped into the car, not in front of it, into the car, and looked over the other side, and sure enough, it was missing its front wheel. And I was like, oh, okay.
How long has that wheel been missing?
I'll get you another car, don't worry about that. And I was like, where is the wheel? Where has it gone? Like, and why did the people who just got out of the car not tell me it was missing a wheel? I don't know how that thing was running or how long it was running.
Could you imagine it just...
So I quickly tipped that car off the track and told the coordinator, who then got in a car of their own and drove around until they found this missing wheel. Eventually she came back with this, like, holding this car wheel. It was like, oh no. So they can go wrong. Thankfully no one was injured, there was no issues with that, but yeah.
That's funny.
One of the strangest problems I found with a car was one of them was missing its front wheel. Number 5. So occasionally guests will get a little bit upset. They'll get a little bit angry, stressed out, whatever. It's been a long day, it's extremely hot. I totally understand. So it was about 1, maybe 2 in the morning, because we were into the extra magic hours. And so we only had 2 tracks open. And normally the tracks have 12 spaces we can assign. The 2 tracks that are open have 6 on one side and 4 on the other, labelled 1 to 6 and 9 to 12. And I was grouping the guests, my least favourite role, and when I do it, because I don't assume that you speak English, I normally I say going to number 1, number 2, and give you a hand signal as well. And I'm very, very certain I said to a guest number 9, I'm pretty sure it was number 9, and they walked straight past me, didn't say anything, and I carried on grouping the rest of the people. And not 2 minutes later, the guest comes back to me and was like, "You told me number 7, there isn't a number 7, and got very, very irate, very angry, very in my face. And I was just like, but I didn't, and I'm pretty sure I gave you a hand signal as well. I'm not sure how they misinterpreted that, but it escalated so quickly. I had no idea. I remember him saying, "I'm gonna take your name, I'm gonna complain, I'm gonna get you in trouble," like all this kind of stuff, which seemed like such an overreaction. I got him on the ride, I apologised, moved on. But I will just say that story really has stuck with me. I remember it was an adult, a grown man and his child, and just so you know, if you get angry like that with a cast member, you may forget about it and move on, but it sticks with you. I mean, that was 6 years ago, and I still remember.
Especially because you're like, you don't know.
It made me feel awful. I was like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure, and nothing ever came of it, thankfully. But just be mindful. Number 6 was the time, and this one really makes me laugh, was the time I accidentally sent guests the wrong way, and I would never intentionally do that. I was there at Greta position, and I was thankfully in range of, I could see the castle, I could see Wishes, which was currently playing, and I could hear the music. It's a very rare opportunity you get to do that whilst you're working, so I was enjoying the fireworks. And it was getting to the end. Make a wish, wishes. That kind of stuff. You know, if you know, you know. I was doing the final bit, and as you know, like Disney fireworks, they end in a big, big finale. And this family came running up to me, and they were like, "Which way is it?" And I was like, "Look at the fireworks, like the sky is full." And they kept on running that way, and I was like, "Oh no, the entrance is here." They were looking for the entrance for Speedway, and I pointed like that, and they just went that way. And I just started laughing, and I was like, "I'm really sorry." And like one of the other family members was like with me, and I was like, "Can you tell them to come back? I'm really sorry." And they did, and I'm sure I let them fast pass through or whatever. I was like,
because you thought they were talking about the fireworks.
Yeah. I was like, "Look, like,
look at how beautiful they are."
I was like, "Forget Speedway, it's going to be here all the time. The fireworks are in the sky now." Oops. Okay, number 7, the story of the smoking Speedway car. So, I was on the lane, I was on the closest lane to the station.
Okay.
And I was helping people in and out of the cars, helping those with mobility issues, that sort of thing, that was my job. And I was sort of just generally surveying the area, and there were people on the down ramp, you go up a ramp and down a ramp to then go get grouped onto the cars. There's people on the down ramp, and they were frantically waving to get my attention. And then I was like, eventually saw them, I was like, "Hi." And they were pointing down to the car that was just beneath them in the, just before the station. So there's about 2-3 cars outside the station. And as you're going up to the station, you're going up a hill, ever so slightly. And I looked over to the car, and sure enough, this car had smoke coming out of it. It wasn't loads, but there was clearly smoke, and where there's smoke, there's probably fire. And I just sprung into action. I didn't even think about it. So, first things first, I went over and turned the car off, because it could well be just coming from the engine. I turned the car off behind it, and I rolled them backwards by taking off their brake. And I got the car in front of them to move all the way forwards, so that there was a clear area around this car. And I got the guests out of the car that was smoking, and I evacuated them. And I got the guests out of the car behind and in front as well, and evacuated them. And that was it. I was like, okay, I've done it. The smoking seemed to resolve, so it was definitely an issue with the engine. And to then take that car off the track, you need to take the brakes off, so you need to be inside it and push the pedal down, and you need the car behind it to push it. So I just jumped inside and had my foot on the pedal with the brakes off, ready for someone to push me off. And I was thinking, I'm in a car that was just on fire a second ago.
That's what I was about to say. Like, you just got in, like,
But I was,
You put yourself in a dangerous situation!
I was always thinking about was getting the ride moving again, because the whole time, you know, I'm dealing with that, the ride is shut down.
Safety begins with you!
I bet those claps are really loud.
Sorry. Headphone warning.
The issue had been resolved, the guests were out of danger, there was no longer any smoking.
Okay.
And I was getting the car off. So
I'm just so glad you're still alive, okay? That's all.
Fine, it was fine. You know, the worst part is there was no senior cast, no managers around to see the excellent job that I'd just done.
Did you, like, give fast passes to
I would have, but they were gone. They were gone by the time I was done with
Oh.
it. And I was a bit too busy just trying to get the
Yeah,
issue
you would
resolved.
have been like, here,
Yeah.
have a magical day.
Normally we would compensate them, but I was trying to deal with a possible fire. Number 8, and this is most dramatic, left for last, of course. For all you guys that stayed to the end of the video, thank you. So this was the story of the collapsed cast member, and it was quite a scary night, to be honest. So it was one of our 3 AM finishes, so we were all closing up the ride, and to close up the ride, we drive the cars off the track, and to drive them off is into the garage, which is just next to the station, so you just drive them round, then cut through and pick another one and drive around. And we were doing this, and there's sort of about 6 or 8 cast members doing that, so we're all kind of getting in a rhythm. And I cut through to then pick up another car, and I spotted a cast member on the floor, just collapsed, completely unconscious,
Where?
in the middle of the track, but these tracks were already closed because it's the end of the night. And I went to her, and she was kind of making some strange breathing noises, but it was quite scary, to be honest. And other cast members spotted and came over. One was worried that there was no pulse and started CPR. Coordinators called for an alpha unit. Every manager in Tomorrowland came over. It was quite serious. It was like the most serious thing I've ever seen at Disney World, and thankfully it happened out of hours, so no one got in serious harm. And I, having a medical background, established she did have a pulse, she was breathing, and put her in recovery position. Much to my frustration, but I completely understand it, the managers were on the phone to 911, who told them to roll her onto her back, listen to her breathing, and I was like, I've done this, and they cleared me away. And I get it, they have to follow protocol, they can't ignore the advice of 911, but I was also like,
we've already done that.
but I'm a medic, like I've done this, I've established that she's got output, she's got cardiac output, she is perfusing, she is breathing, put in a recovery position, that way she won't choke on her tongue. For whatever reason, she's unconscious, she needs to...
Yeah, it was like putting her back onto her back is just a safety issue.
But look, I'm not going to argue, they're a big corporate industry, they've got to follow protocols, they've got to have protocols. And she was taken away and spent a few days in hospital, and unfortunately it turned out that she had a heart issue, a known heart issue that she hadn't declared to the company, which meant that she wasn't safe to work on attractions.
No.
Because if that had happened in the middle of the day, she could have got run over by a car. If that had happened while she was working on and moving an attraction, she would have got seriously injured. And in fact, there is a position on Speedway where you are out in the middle of the track, watching over the track by yourself, and then she collapsed out there.
Nobody would have.
God knows how long it would have taken us to find her. So that was one of the scariest things I've ever dealt with at Disney World. But thankfully she was okay.
Yeah.
She got back to work. Didn't work on Speedway anymore.
Do you know where she got
She went to Emporium.
Huh.
So you know it's safe and there's much more minimal people around. And she didn't really get in trouble for it. But that was a scary moment. But those are some Speedway stories. I hope you enjoyed them.
Crazy Speedway.
Crazy things do happen behind the scenes just to keep things moving along, things you wouldn't even notice on your day-to-day trip. But I hope you enjoyed them, and if you have any questions for us, just let us know down below. And we'll see you in the next video where we go on to Epcot.
Epcot.
See you then.
Bye.